can't hurt Uncle Roggvir. Tell them he didn't do it.
Position.
Sorry, you need to go home.
You betrayed
Go
us.
home. There until your mother comes.
Get on with it!
You should tell her that her uncle is scum that betrayed his high king. Best she know
Gate
now.
guard you were!
You're all right.
Roggvir, you helped Ulfric Stormcloak escape the city after he murdered High King Torrig. By opening that gate for Ulfric, you betrayed the people of Solitude. He doesn't deserve to speak!
There was no murder. Ulfric
Liar.
challenged Torrig. He beat the High King in fair combat. Such is our way. Such is the ancient custom of Skyrim and all Nords.
Boo!
On this day, I go to Sovngarde.
I guess it's all over. I expected... I don't know what I expected.
I still can't believe he knew what he was doing when he opened that gate.
Roggvir, why did it have to be like this?
Not right now.
Good riddance to bad rubbish, I say.
It shouldn't have been like this.
A man opens a gate and they cut his head off? Doesn't seem right to me.
Shame, Roggvir. You're a good man. I heard the gourmet is hiding out somewhere in Skyrim. You know, fellow who wrote the cookbook. Not my finest hour. Roggvir was a fine and honorable man. Sometimes you just do what needs to be done. You don't have to hate a man to kill him. Though, admittedly, it helps. That I am. Train the recruits. Turn boys into men. That sort of thing. Thinking of asking the general for some training books. Give the soldiers something to do while they're on rest. Something besides drinking. Ever seen a book called The Mirror? We used to hand it out to boys looking to learn basic shield work. Good on you. Keep my men in your prayers. They'll need them if they don't shape up. I'm waiting. Stay strong. The 8th willing will win this war.
What is it?
Ah, yet another new face. I'm from Hammerfell, you see. I can hardly keep track of all the people I've been meeting. Aye, but I'll be here in Solitude for longer still. Fiata's skill as a Fletcher drew me to this place. I wanted to learn. And there is still much of Skyrim I wish to see. I hear there is a city, Windhelm, that is nearly white with... what do you call it? Oh yeah, snow. And far to the west lies a ruin, Volskag. Inside there's said to be a wall, black as night, and it speaks in the ancient dragon tongue. There are wonders in this place I never dreamed imaginable. Good to talk to a fellow traveler.
A coin or two for a veteran? It's...
I have no business with you. Leave me.
Oh, Mari.
Yes? Nah, I don't think so. Strangers are nothing but trouble.
Staunch protectors, the Imperials. We drink to our youth, to the days come and gone, for the age of aggression is just about done. We'll drive out the storm cloaks and restore what we own. With our blood and our steel, we will take back.
What is it, stranger? If you're looking for work, I'm not the person to ask. Now there's a strange request. I suppose there's no harm in it. Go on then. Grab a drink and sit down.
But this land is ours, and we'll see it wiped clean of the scourge that has sullied our hopes and our dreams. Down with Ulfric, the killer of kings.
I'll warn you now, friend. I'm not exactly known for conversation. The swillin here isn't worth drinking much of either.
It's a favorite of mine. A legend we all know.
Many things. When you've lived as long as I have, some of them might even be worth remembering. No, I suppose not. What you have to understand, however, is that I'm not about to relive the past, simply because we share a flagon. Very well. I'll talk with you. What do you want to know? Nothing. But I suppose that's the problem. My name is Roggvir, but back when I was younger, they called me Stormhand. A silly name, but the life of a warrior tends to leave its mark in any number of ways. Yes, but those days seem like they were a lifetime ago. Too old. I have lived far past my time, where countless younger men now feast with shore. I do, but most of them have faded into memory after all these years. For the longest time, I thought I was Talos Reborn, or the Great Dovahkiin. The foolishness of youth, and an unwillingness to let cooler heads prevail when my blade was in hand. All across Skyrim, even down past the Geralt Mountains, I traveled from town to town, cave to cave, seeking thrills and adventure. From days of slaying Draugr and bandits, to nights of feasting and womanizing in the local taverns, I was unstoppable. But those days are behind me now. You are still young, and you have the whole world ahead of you. Enjoy it while you can. It won't last forever. The same thing that changes anyone. Love. I met my wife while working in Whiterun Hold. A group of rogue students from the college had set themselves up nearby to attack travelers. While they no doubt needed food and supplies as any of us, it soon progressed from stealing to outright massacring everyone in their way. I'd been hired by a group of local farmers, led by 2 patriarchs, to track the mages and put an end to the attacks. The sites had already been cleared by the guards, and anyone I talked to in town were either scared stiff or didn't know anything. I heard that another warrior was also on their path, a fierce, red-headed Nord woman, and I welcomed the challenge. There was nothing wrong with some competition, after all, especially with a warrior of equal skill. However, the winter rains had set in, and as any hunter can tell you, this only made finding my targets more difficult. For days I searched the region, but there was no sign. Tired and annoyed, with days since my last fight, I made the journey back to Dragon's Reach. As I was making my way back, I crossed paths with the merchant near the western watchtower. The rains were relentless as Kain's wrath fell from the heavens, and the merchant was huddled in furs, with an old horse in tow. With barely a hint of sunset poking through the gloom and rain, I walked over and asked them if they needed help back to the city. The woman smiled at me and threw back her hood, red hair and a twinkle in her eye. Before I could even respond, a lightning bolt came crackling through the rain, and she threw herself forwards, knocking both of us to the ground. The mages had sneaked up on us, and I cursed myself for not being more aware, outclassed by my rival no less. The rain was endless and difficult to see in, but it was as much of an advantage to us as it was the attackers. I remember pushing myself up from the soil to see one of the mages come running up, a dagger in one hand and a fire spell in the other. As quickly as I could, I unsheathed my weapon, rolled to the side, and brought it up in a swing, putting all my might behind it. The mage crumbled to the ground, and I leapt toward another of them, tearing through their barrier and running my blade through their chest. My friend was being attacked by two mages, but fought them off with a sword and a makeshift shield formed from a section of the cart. I went to help her, only to find another 3 mages moving towards me. Clearly, they thought to overwhelm us with numbers. Perhaps, but they certainly fought like a horde of hag-ravens, and the wilderness had toughened them. Aye, but not without ending up with scars of our own. The rain continued to pour down, and the Whiterun plains were too open to try for any strategy. The woman and I ended up back to back, the group of mages almost having exhausted their magical reserves. At last, we found an opening and finished the rest of them off. By that point, our clothes had been soaked with rain and blood, and we were both tired. We agreed to wait till morning and sought refuge in the watchtower, still abandoned back then. The fire pit was serviceable, and some old furs and hay were enough to form a place to rest. There was only room for one of us, but we found a way to make it work, and it kept the two of us warm until the rain passed. Next morning, we returned to Dragon's Reach and told those farmers that the job was done. I was already taken with her by then, and we agreed to split the gold equally. After living a free life on the path, I wanted to be with her. I couldn't contain myself. By the city gate, I told her how I felt in one nervous outpour. I must have looked like a fool. She just stood there, watching me as she listened intently. When I was finished acting like a boy with his first crush, she smiled softly. To my surprise, she leapt forward into a hug and kissed me on the cheek. Love. True, God's damned love. From that moment onwards, I gave up the womanizing, and we lived a life on the road together. I was a warrior in my prime, and had the love of my life to match. I couldn't have asked for a greater gift than her. We were an odd sight, 2 warriors working together. Most of the time, it's easier for adventurers to go their own way, but we didn't mind it. She was so beautiful, I can't even begin to describe it, and she showed me there was so much more to life. 2 young warriors, fierce and in love. For years, we took work across Skyrim, even further on occasion, and lived however we liked. Most of all, we were together. But those days can't last forever. After being married under the eyes of Mara, we agreed to settle down and move to a small farm on the outskirts of Shore Stone. By then, she was with child, and we couldn't risk any more fights. We hung up our weapons on the wall and started a new life together. I wanted to be with her no matter what, but it wasn't that easy. You seem like the adventuring sort, so perhaps you can sympathize. All my life had been spent in battle, and there I was, a mountain of a man that didn't know one end of a hoe from the other. I was no farmer. I was built for war, not milking cows. Winter came and went, and she gave birth to a baby boy, my son. I thought he was pathetic. All the mewling like an animal. He would cry all night, or otherwise sit gurgling on the floor, babbling in the way that children do. Soon's breath. What on earth was I supposed to do with him? I didn't know how to be a father. I tried. I really did. But all it did was make my wife's day more difficult. She had a way with children, as if she'd been destined to be a mother. And then, well, then it all comes back to the Great War. After years of living as an adventurer on the road, I decided to enlist with the Legion. Even if I couldn't help our home, I could, at the very least, help protect my wife and son. Battle was in my blood, and it would be good to get back in the field, or so I thought. Great might be in its name, but I witnessed unimaginable cruelty, and no one walked away from it without scars. When I returned, my boy was almost 2 winters old. It was strange, really, when time passes and stands still. My wife had pleaded with me not to go, not to throw away everything we'd built together, but she was relieved to see that I was still alive. Of course, but what I had seen in the war had put all thought of bloodshed from my mind. I was content, at least, to live out my days in peace, even if life on the farm had its hardships. The boy even started to grow on me, and it felt like we were finally a family. Yes. One day, my son must have been 3 or 4 years old by then. I was out with the cows when a group of bandits came riding up. They demanded gold for our protection against any threats before riding off, saying that they'd return in a few days. It was all nonsense, of course, but I had a family to look after, and both my wife's and my own weapons had been gathering dust above the fire. We talked for a long time and decided that we would pay them, at least for the time being. The farm had set us back quite a lot, but we had spent years building up a small fortune on the road. In hindsight, it was likely word of that fortune that brought those bandits to us in the first place. Huh, gold. What good are septums? True to their word, the bandits came back a few days later. I remember that day, because the afternoon light made the leaves look like they were on fire. But they came in greater force than we were expecting. As I handed the gold to their leader, he knocked it out of my hand and spat in my face. They wanted all of it, or they would kill us. I would have torn him limb from limb right there, but I had a family to look after. I turned and walked slowly towards the house, my wife glaring from the doorway. She was dig on himself whenever she got that look in her eyes and her arms were crossed, but all she did was glare at the bandits. I never got the chance. As I moved inside, carefully watching the bandits from the window, one of them had crept up to the side of the house and set it on fire. When the smell of burnt wood hit us, I reached for our weapons above the fireplace and threw my wife's sword in her direction. They were hoping to burn us and the fortune out in one go. The bastards. A volley of arrows tore into the side of the house, and we threw ourselves down on the ground before crawling out, using the smoke as cover. It had already begun to fill the house, that smell that clings to your throat. But we could still save our home. We just had to move quickly. My wife leapt towards the ones waiting by the horses, while I ran around to the side, near the trees where the others lay in wait. The thrill of battle might be exhilarating, but fighting for your home and loved ones is another thing entirely. It's all-consuming and ruthless. The bandits were slain, one by one, and the two of us fought in battle, one last time. I managed to save the house, but it was badly damaged, and we were both injured in the fighting. We were safe and alive, and then it hit us. Before the bandits had arrived, my son had been laying down to sleep for his afternoon nap, hoping that whatever happened, he'd be safe. But in that very same wing of the house, where the fire had started, I kicked in the door and found him exactly where he was, lying on the cot I'd carved for him a few weeks earlier, and he wasn't breathing. I could barely contain myself as I took his body in my arms and walked out slowly to where my wife was waiting. I didn't have to say anything. As soon as she saw him, she collapsed to the ground and wept her heart out. It broke me. As much as we loved each other, that was the end of everything. I left my blade behind me, and I have been out here ever since. Pray that you never have to go through such a thing, traveler, for not even the gods can bear it. You don't have to say anything. All I need is a warm drink. Gods know it's been cold out there. No, that ship has long since sailed. Last I heard, she was in the palace at Windhelm, her shield maiden days well behind her. We aren't enemies by any means, but even love can't survive the death of a child. It was for the best that we went our separate ways. I still love her, gods, with all my heart, but what we had was in the past. Now, all the two of us have are the memories together. It was nothing. I suppose it helps after all this time, and it's never good to drink alone. Stay safe out there, young one, and thank you.
I'm getting on the first boat out of this accursed province. It was a cabin somewhere on the north bank of the White, near Riverwood. A kind old lady was living there. Or so I thought. She let me stay the night, but told me not to go into the cellar. Naturally, I got curious. There was all sorts of oddities in there. I think she was a witch or a necromancer or something. In any case, I got out of that cellar and never stopped running. Safe journeys.
For the darkness has passed, and the legend yet grows. You'll know the Dragonborn's come. Feel free to make requests. Only in that I'm a graduate. I work here at the Winking Skeever. I would highly recommend it, though. Talk to Viarmo if you're interested. You should think about staying the night. Corpulus keeps it clean. We drink to our youth, to the days come and gone, for the age of
We're paying our respects to me dead husband. Henry and I lost his father in the war. Now, I do what I can to get by and care for Henry. Thank you, we manage. I just have to keep Henry entertained and out of trouble. That's the really hard part.
On the day of your death, we will drink and we'll sing.
What can I do for you?
We're the children of Skyrim, and we fight all our lives. And when Sovngarde beckons, everyone
It's been a pleasure.
By blade or by spell. If you want it dead, I'll make it dead. All you need to do is pay my fee. The blade can be as lethal as the spell, but deadlier still is the one who wields both.
On the day of your death, we will drink and we'll sing. This one's a favorite of mine. A legend we all know and love.
Hello there. We haven't met, have we? I'm Fironet, although my friends call me Firo, or Netta for short. Although I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. We just met, so we're hardly friends. Not to mean that we won't be friends someday, or even today. I'm sorry, I'm really bad at this. Can we start over? Oh, well met as well. I mean, well met and greetings. What I'm trying to say is, greetings and well met. Oh, sweet taffy treats, I did it again, didn't I? Well, I was kind of hoping I could. I know, you're probably thinking I've gone mad the way I fumbled through our meeting. And, truth is, I'm perfectly happy just being Netta the milkmaid. Well, my friends have all said that I have a great singing voice. I suppose they should, because that's what friends do. But after hearing it a number of times from different people, you start to think there might be something to it. So here I am. No, not yet. I talked to Viarmo, and he said that Pentia Atea would hear my audition when her schedule clears up. Oh, which is completely understandable. I imagine a master vocalist must have a very hectic schedule. I bet you're right. I don't know about demanding it, but at the very least I should put more pressure on Pentia to see me. I guess I'm just worried that if I annoy her enough, she'll deny my admittance before I even finish my warm-up. I know. I have a tendency to overthink things, too. Right now, my biggest fear is having my throat go hoarse the day Pentia calls my name. And I still haven't recovered from the bout of rust chancre. One of the bards from the college suggested chewing on Nernroot, but I wasn't sure if he was serious. Heh, I suppose it would be quite irritating. I didn't plan on singing with it in my mouth, though. Just the lute. Can you imagine me on the drum? I can't. Well, the lute I have was my grandmother's. It turns out she was once a bard who studied at the college here in the city. My mother gave it to me before I left. She said she would have done it sooner, but she never realized I wanted to be a bard. I told her that made two of us. Yeah, I still feel rather clumsy with it. Sometimes I feel like it's lost all patience with my fingers. It's a cranky old thing and is quick to get out of tune. But when it's right, it can sing as beautifully as any other. You mean like sing? Right here? Okay. But my voice is a little hoarse from practicing. Is there anything in particular you want to hear? You mean like a song that I wrote? Oh, I'm not that talented. I mean, I've written a few lyrics and there's sort of a melody. How about I sing it, and you can give me some guidance as to whether it's good? Alright, here goes. Snow falls on all the land, all the land, all the land. child prayed unto the God, save the land, save the land. And the God said unto the child, to Skyrim come spring. For our hero does walk the land, walk the land, walk the land. Our hero does walk the land, and the dragons will flee. Flowers bloom on the land, children walk hand in hand. Sun shining on white sand, to Skyrim comes peace. Thanks. It does seem to feel more natural than some of the other songs the bards sing. Probably because I wrote it for myself. Oh no, I came here on a ship from Laneland, near Iliac Bay in Hammerfell. I didn't come alone, though. My fiancé at the time came with me. He stuck it out here in Skyrim for a few months, but eventually boarded a ship headed back home. It's my fault, really. I knew he didn't want to come to Skyrim, and it was probably the guilt that made him follow me here. It's one of those things. If I loved him, I shouldn't have asked him to leave. If he loved me, he wouldn't have asked me to stay. So in the end, I guess neither of us loved each other. But we'd already invested so much time into the relationship, and so he sacrificed everything for me. Well, we didn't have a lot of gold, but my fiancé said he sold the farm so we could sail to Solitude. It was actually kind of romantic, but at some point on the way here, I caught a bad case of rust chancre. I got a rash on my arms and some swelling in my cheeks, but it was the damage to my throat that was the most depressing part. It took months before I could even speak. He got impatient. The truth was, he expected us to be back in Hammerfell before the crops were in season. I should have known he didn't sell the farm. The Bard's College was only an excuse. What I really wanted to do was travel and see the world. I wanted to be somewhere grand, a place where the castles touch the sky. But really, I just wanted to be somewhere different. Somewhere new. Safe journeys.